Right, I think that's sort of slowed down. We can probably crack on, can't we?
Think so.
We're going to fly through some content today. See, as I say that, then someone else joins. We're going to fly through some content today. Because there's quite a lot to cover. This is quite a big topic, and Claudia and I have been really excited about what do we bring up? What's the most relevant stuff? What's the priorities that you need to walk away with today? So welcome to this webinar. It's going to be the first of a few that we do over the summer as part of our summer series. You'll know that normally we do LinkedIn live events. We've kind of taken a bit of a pause from that because we got something exciting planned for September. I won't spoil it now, but just stay connected to our LinkedIn channel and you'll see all of the updates from us. And you'll be able to engage with all of the different types of events and newsletters and new bits of content that we'll be sharing in the coming months. But this webinar specifically, we wanted to focus around building trust and using communication almost as a way to strengthen that culture and face change and challenge and uncertainty really positively together. So we're going to cover today kind of why are we talking about communication, some of the latest research and stats around that. We're going to look at the impact, but mostly we're going to focus our attention on, well, what makes communication successful in today's modern workplace with AI and different modes of communication and the expectation around being authentic and transparent. And then we're going to kind of delve into, well, what do we do about it? What skills do we start to look at? What's most important? And where does strengths fit into all of this? So we've got quite a lot to get through, haven't we? Welcome those. I've noticed quite a few familiar faces, so welcome back. But those of you that are new, my name is Anthony. I am a lead psychologist and client account director here at Bailey and French, and joined by my wonderful colleague, Claudia.
Hi guys, I am also a business psychologist and client director here at Bailey and French. I work with a lot of our private sector accounts on a global scale, so I'm really keen to get into this with you all. Should be a good chat.
Yeah, and we've been talking kind of, I guess, because all of the client work that goes on and we're delivering programs globally, we focus a lot on leadership programs, but also just general personal effectiveness and team development programs seems to be hot topic around communication. And whether that's how to present or influence or manage upwards and challenge and create challenging and honest conversations, we kind of cover all of that. But Claudia and I were really interested in this topic specifically. So off the back of this, if you do want to learn more or want to meet with Claudia and I, pop us a note in either the chat here today or send us a message directly, and we'd love to come and see you and talk through some of the stuff that we cover today. But I guess to kind of kick us off, Claudia, this is, as I said, a huge topic, and there's so much research that we could have done on this. What are we talking about right now? Why are we talking about communication? What's the big stuff you're seeing?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably a very hot topic at the moment, as we mentioned here, and we're working with brilliant leaders across lots of industries, across the private and public sector. So I think we've got quite a nice overarching view on this. And I think, especially in quite fast-paced, high-pressure environments at the moment, people are really struggling because, we have so many meetings and we have far too many tools at our disposal, but we have them coming out of our ears, really. But they're really struggling because communication has probably lost its humanity, and we really want to bring that back. We're kind of in this strange paradox where we're more connected than ever, but less understood. And I think the data also backs it up. So while 85% of leaders know human connection drives performance, only 23% say their organizations communicate with actual empathy and clarity. But why is this important? Why are we talking about this today? I think some of the key things around, bad communication can really lead to incorrect assumptions and interpretations. And also with continuous change going on at the moment, it's really important to know that we're all aligned to organizational goals to actually drive the businesses forward. So today, we're hopefully going to help you change that. This isn't all about perfect messaging, but it's all about building trust through the way we speak, listen, and also lead, especially when it's quite tough. So, and I think you've got some wonderful stats and some info to bring into it.
Yeah, I love geeking out on this topic, but I think what you said there in that one liner kind of sums it up. Are we losing our humanity and our communication? AI is kind of changing the game. How many of us are using AI to respond to emails? Copilot's obviously taking a lot of that away from us, suggesting certain words. I was reading a really nice piece that was almost questioning, are we going to start to lose our ability to come up with new innovative words? Every year we have a word that's added to the dictionary, and it's normally a fun one, something that's a bit more cultural. Are we going to lose that creativity as human beings? And also, it turns out that we're communicating now more than ever, right? We're spending about 20 hours a week just communicating. Top performing CEOs show that they're communicating around 40% of their time just communicating. And that's really interesting as a leader. How do you do it? What platforms do I use? What bias do I need to be aware of? How do I do it on video? We asked a group of senior leaders recently to engage in a communication via video, which seems strange because you do it on Teams all of the time, but to do it as a kind of filmed video edited version of communication, it's just new and different, and there's so much riding on it. There's loads of reports that you can read on this, so I'll run through some of them, but something like $15,000 per person per year is the cost of miscommunication in your business. So that's like a really nice tangible business case, I thought. There's so much more, it costs the US economy trillions, and AI is making it X% worse. But I think that £15,000 or dollars per employee each year is a really tangible thing to get your head around as an organization and to understand the impact. But what was really interesting, and that was from a study that was done by Grammarly and the kind of state of business communication report, which I'll make sure that we send as part of this following. But what's really interesting is that doesn't even count for the customer satisfaction, the loss of engagement, that's purely just miscommunication and misalignment, which I thought was really interesting. And I guess we're seeing that, Claudia, with our clients.
Mm-hmm. We sure are. Indeed. Yeah. And I think, just some examples of some communication blow ups have been, for example, with in 2022, we had Best.com, the CEO fired 900 people. I don't know if anyone remembers this. So 15% of their workforce via Zoom. And there was a huge blow up on, a huge PR disaster following it, just because of the way that it was done and executed. So it's really critical that you don't do this. We mitigate these circumstances that are going to happen and come up.
Yeah, there's been a few of those blunders recently, hasn't there?
Indeed, there have. Okay, so should we go to our first poll?
Go for it.
Okay,
yeah, let's do that.
What we want to ask you is, when communication breaks down at work, what's the biggest impact that you notice? So we've got a few things here. So is it misalignment and confusion? Is it conflict or tension, lack of trust or motivation, slower decision making, or people feeling left out or not heard? So you should have that pop up on your screen at the moment. Just pop in whatever you feel is most aligned.
Yeah, that's interesting. Straight in there with kind of conflict and lack of trust.
Oh, they're moving. What have we got? Lack of trust and motivation is definitely up there. Conflict or tension. Oh, misalignment and confusion. They're still rolling in. Still rolling in.
It's really interesting. The confusion piece is really interesting, isn't it? Because that's the misalignment, that's the miscommunication.
Okay, I think lack of trust or motivation is clearly a bit of a winner here. So obviously with the lack of trust and motivation, that's going to massively impact your organization. You're going to have disengaged employees, people who aren't wanting to turn up for their job. You might have increased attrition, turnover. There's so much that can really impact the organization. Hence why it's so important to get this right.
Yeah, and I think it really ties into the strategic pillars of most organizations right now. Every single organization is facing into some sort of need for transformation, whether that's a restructure or something around digital, entering into a new market, or just kind of withstanding the pressures of a new workforce and all the different kind of generations and difficulties with adopting AI. There's so much at a strategic level that is going wrong, but there's some really important ones probably to bring to attention of some of you that this will affect. But changes in legislation for example, the EU pay directive that's going to bring in the need for organizations to be more transparent about pay. You know, how you communicate that is going to be huge in terms of your impact on lack of trust and motivation for your organization, which is ultimately going to cost potentially millions, and worse if you get it as wrong as what the Duolingo CEO or any of those CEOs that have maybe made slightly blunders. And it's becoming kind of more and more important than ever probably before. You're communicating across 8 or 9 different platforms at any given moment. There's quite a lot riding on this, Claudia.
There is indeed. Yes. We've also got, obviously, adoption of AI and digital strategy is going to, I think that, we've really kind of covered that, to be honest, but the need to stay innovative, stay competitive. We've also got, people spending hours and hours in meetings, hours in emails. I think all the different channels of communication, people really need to understand the impact of how they say things and how it's going to impact employees ultimately at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit. Probably now more than ever, we're going to start to see the symptoms. So communication, the problem is one thing, how we communicate, and we're just going to talk about the drivers and the skills that you need. But the symptoms that you start to see, people burning out, it's a symptom usually of people not communicating effectively and being trusted or seen, heard, all of those things that are in that poll. There's too much information because you've got so many channels and all these notifications popping up that ruin your kind of deep thinking and flow of work. Just makes trust and clarity that bit much harder, even though the top performing people are spending 40% of their time communicating. So it's really interesting to look at what makes people successful, I suppose. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this, Claudia, but this was just a report that I pulled from McKinsey. But actually, there's a lot behind this. Communication's been around for a while. This isn't a new psychological concept that we've come up with, but I think it's changing and people's expectations have changed, and therefore the skills that we need, or I suppose the priority areas, because we can't develop all skills all at once right away. We have to kind of prioritize. And these are some of the top ones that we're seeing here. These sort of resonate with what you're seeing with clients?
I think so, and I think everyone could probably agree. If there's anything else that you're seeing, please pop it in the chat as well. We're really keen to understand from your perspective as well if this aligns. Give us a thumbs up, give us a little, if these are something that you can really see as really important factors. Yeah, there we go, we've got some there. Awesome. So on the flip side, so those who actually do get it right, we got 43% say they've gained new business deals or deals because of effective communication. I think that probably goes without saying. 64% increased productivity, 33% cost efficiencies, 51% improved customer satisfaction. So you can really see, obviously, the real impact of this. But not only that, 48% reduced stress, increased confidence, and 58% satisfaction at work. We all want to be happy at work. We spend so much time at work. It's so critical that we enjoy coming to work each day and we don't feel concerned about the impact of our words or how others are going to treat us as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think this speaks probably to why this is so important as an industry, as an HR, L&D, as business psychologists. We kind of have a responsibility now to impart some of this knowledge to everyone as quickly as possible in the flow of work, but focusing on these really important, not just what you do. So there's certain things that you can do to create clarity of role expectation. Right? We talk about it a lot when we start to look at team flow as an example, and how we can communicate to give people the clarity on this is what I expect of you, and having those open, honest conversations. But it's also then how you do it and understanding yourself at a deeper level. And this is where the emotional intelligence, self-awareness element comes in. Your piece around the humanity. I love that, because being authentic, being efficient actually is still bringing that humanity. I respect you enough to limit my communication and make it really simple for you, but doing it in a way that's really authentic to me. If I am detailed, I may be leaning into the detail. If I'm results focused, I might, just be a little bit sharper, but that's okay because we're all unique and different. And I think this really comes into, okay, how do we start to look at the skills? So not what are we doing and how are we doing it, but also just what skills are we learning that need to be a little bit different. I know you've got another poll here, so we can do that.
We do indeed. So the next poll, guys, I'd love your engagement on this one too, is which modern skill is most important for you to improve right now? So we've obviously got digital empathy. So that's across, digital platforms, on Slack, on Teams, whatever platform you might use, email, etc. Structured written communication. We've got active listening, feedback and coaching, or storytelling with impact.
That's really interesting. I wasn't expecting feedback and coaching to be the top one, but it's by far the top one.
I think that's brilliant, to be honest, because we know that, through continuous feedback, you're only going to develop and grow. And that is awesome. That really is shocking me as well, actually.
Yeah, that's quite. I'm really interested if someone could put it onto the chat. Why do you think feedback and coaching over all of the others there are particularly interesting? Because for me, I almost thought digital empathy, I'm really understanding the situation so that I know when to use Teams or when to dial in and put my camera on, or when we should probably have it face to face. That kind of, I see so much of that go badly wrong. A lot of the examples that we shared at the beginning were those sorts of things going wrong. But yeah, I'm really interested to hear feedback and coaching, why that's so important. That's really interesting.
Oh, definitely. Awesome. We've also got storytelling with impact, obviously coming in fairly quite lagging behind on the second one, but I think storytelling is also really critical, especially with, we're seeing a lot in the market around redundancies and layoffs, and so therefore making people really understand the reasons behind it and seeing, keeping those people engaged who are still within the organization, and storytelling the future and what things that they can see as a positive as a result of this restructuring is going to be so important to really make sure that people are really engaged. So we've got Ariel there. Feedback feels most impactful on others. Getting the right balance is tricky. Yeah, definitely is. Ellis, in the moment, effective feedback is so key for relationships and overall team success. Yeah, absolutely cannot agree more with that. Coaching and feedback is such a crucial skill for leaders to engage and empower, which the current workforce thrive on, from Vanja there. Definitely agree with that one. Feedback, both upwards and downwards, is vital, without a doubt. I think leaders really need to be receptive to understanding the impact of their communication and maybe adapting their communication styles based upon, who they're dealing with is going to be critical. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, thanks for that engagement, guys. Really, really helpful with that. Shall we move on to the next thing?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Thank you, folks, and keep putting this into the chat because it's really interesting to hear your thoughts. And I suppose when we look at those traditional skills, we're looking at predominantly written skills. We're probably looking at, very traditional influencing and standardized, boxed. I guess what we're probably moving to is a much more fluid skills. I guess application and intelligence of application. Previously you could equip the skill to present on PowerPoint and do a PowerPoint presentation. Now you're using so many different platforms and polls and different audience groups because your audience has become maybe a little bit wider because you're entering new markets. Again, coming back to those strategic pillars. What's critical though, and what I'm not seeing enough of our clients, and I'm not seeing anyone on LinkedIn particularly talking about enough at least, is all of the great work that was happening maybe 20, 15 years ago, but certainly in the last 10 years, looking at the fundamental strengths that keep us energized while we're doing this authentically. So if I can understand, look, I've got a collaboration strength, a results focus strength, and a compassion strength, that tells me more about my communication style and also potential risks for overplaying those strengths, in different situations with different audiences, so that my communication can be as effective as possible. So building that strengths awareness, I think, we've talked about this, and if you have missed some of the kind of live sessions, we've talked about the importance of strengths in skills-based organizations and not missing those fundamentals. But I think when it comes to communication especially, this is critical. when we start to think about communicating in teams and across different cultures, different environments. Claudia, do you agree? Do you see some of this? Which
Yeah,
is just
no,
me.
of course. You, especially across different cultures and different, if you work in a global organization, you've got to think about maybe, Eastern Europe's a little bit more direct with their communication style. I think the US is also a little bit sort of more, how do I put this? Excitable and enthusiastic, even in the tone. And then also, Brits are also known for being a bit more direct, but also maybe not speaking directly enough, depending on who you speak to. So I think that really comes into play, definitely. But I mean, also keen to hear in the chat, what strengths do people think that they can draw upon to actually communicate effectively? I think that's a really good question. So feel free to just pop it in the chat. Really keen to hear from you. And what strengths do you think helps you communicate effectively?
Yeah, that's a really and this is the really interesting thing with strengths, because there's no one size answer. But for me, almost collaboration is my greatest strength and my greatest risk, right? At its best and at my best, I love bringing the right people in at the right times, communicating with them with energy and with passion. That kind of gets them on board with a new idea, or it helps, I guess, breathe a bit of life into a program or a project that might be stifling over time. That is me at my best. Ideally applying that to something strategic, right? So it's actually more your combination of strengths, which can be really powerful. But almost then reverse that. You can go, well, actually strategic means you go too big, too quick on some ideas. And maybe the enthusiasm, dial it down, because we've just gone through loads of redundancies and that's not going to land particularly well with this group. And, maybe collaboration, you've over-engineered the collaboration. Sometimes things need to be a bit more organic and you need to let things go. So I think it's a balance, right? And it depends on the audience and the scenario.
You can have too many cooks in the kitchen, as they say.
Right.
We've got Noah here saying that he's results focused. I would definitely say that I'm quite direct, and I think that sometimes that really helps me to get things done and be results focused, as Noah said, as an example. But then equally, sometimes I need to consider how things land a little bit more and ensure that I do it with empathy. That's for me. And that has got people so busy nowadays that often it seems they're not hearing you. Exactly. Everything's so fast and everyone's under so much pressure. So I think feedback is important to make that connection and more active listening. You could not be more correct there. I think a lot of people will agree with you on that one. And also tailoring, Alice said here, tailoring the communication style to the person you're talking to where you can, of course. Calm, unflappable in a crisis. Love that one, Rebecca. That is brilliant. And we all need people like you around to make sure that everyone is feeling okay. Brilliant. And grounding people. I think that's probably quite a grounding thing to as a strength, which is awesome. Got Ariel here. Common sense strength really helps me to bring others along on my thinking logically, but can miss the complexities and ambiguity in how others think and see things. That's really, I think, insightful of you, and you're probably quite self-aware there. So I'm loving that one too. Lorna here, I think empathy is good communication because it promotes understanding, builds rapport and trust, and reduces conflict 100%. I think you can also probably become a fairly good mediator when communication breaks down if you're empathetic of both sides and really understand how to draw on each other, and everyone around you. Really brings in that collaboration strength as well there that Anne mentioned. So thank you so much for those contributions. That's great.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because you think right back to the beginning, you're sort of looking at communication as the opportunity. This isn't a problem. This isn't a crisis. Let's flip that language. That's the strengths philosophy. Let's flip that. Actually, why is a complete muddle of communication your biggest strength right now? This is your opportunity to change some work dynamics, do things a little bit differently. But you need leaders who are going to be asking curious questions about people's strengths, building that self-awareness, continuously feedback and coaching on a continuous basis to help people to understand why their communication styles need to be a bit more adaptive, and they need to push into certain different be uncomfortable sometimes, but learn from it. Create that video. It's okay. The stakes can sometimes be quite high. When we think about CEOs, how do they practice this stuff when they know that they could be on the front page of whatever newspaper that you're reading across the world tomorrow? It's a really tough thing for senior leaders to do. But at Bailey and French, and I've put a QR code here so that you can, if this resonates with you and you're thinking, yes, we need to remember some of this stuff that we've done around strengths, or I've never done the stuff around strengths, this sounds perfect, kind of use that QR code and let's set up a meeting. But developing strengths intelligence is definitely fundamental to what we're doing here, and then reinforcing some of that with the psychological flexibility, empathy, trust behaviors and habits that we've just been talking about. And then let's train all levels. I'm seeing far too much go, we just need this for our execs because then when they communicate effectively, it will trickle down. Yes, but you also need two-way safety. You need people to be curious about their leaders' strengths and to create that culture of communication. So let's not just do the classic and focus on the execs. I know budgets are tight, but there's certain ways that we've been quite collaborative with clients to make that work. But these are some of the 1, 2, 3 things that we need that we can help with, but also you need to be thinking about just generally. Claudia, anything to add to that?
I think, even just from some of our tools around our conversation mats. So anyone who isn't familiar, we essentially have really nice evidence-based guided tools, which are essentially a mat that you can place out in front of people. We can do it virtually as well, and just enables people to have honest conversations, and are honestly such a good tool to enable people to feel psychologically safe and have conversations about changes that are going on in their organization, from a leadership standpoint, from a performance standpoint, from a well-being standpoint, and even just team effectiveness. So I think these are all just really just brilliant tools that we can really help to ensure that everyone leans into their strengths and understands how they can communicate really effectively across the organization, with your teams, with your managers, etc. And I think, as Rebecca said, feedback both upwards and downwards, really those tools really enable that to come into and bring it to life.
Yeah, and it's so important. And you mentioned the mats there. I was delivering a session even just this week, and respect and clarity of different people's strengths, but also praise came up quite a lot, and people getting used to, well, how are we communicating properly praise, and not just praising the little things that maybe you're proud of, but it doesn't link to KPIs, and how do we balance that as an organization? Because this is ultimately about improving workplace performance as much as it is around improving the human experience, and empathy. And then also just how do we create this psychological flexibility? Because when you've got so many changing budgets and prioritizations, and even life gets in the way, right? We got to go and pick the kids up from school, or we need to go and care for an elderly relative, or we need to do any number of life things that sometimes get in the way. If we don't have the psychological capital and the kind of flexibility and the resilience to intentionally switch our human being on, I love that phrase, and Alex uses it all the time, of course. If we don't do this stuff intentionally, it's really difficult to get right, and is often the first thing that gets dropped, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And if we don't have these conversations about understanding each other's values and what's driving us every day at work, then how are you supposed to empathize with people and know what's going on, or lean into, when, work as a team more effectively to ensure that, people, if you've got a kid, you've got to run and pick up your kid who's off sick, someone can cover for you, and that, and you feel supported. So then you're not feeling stressed, and you can come back into work, when you need to, feeling supported, and therefore you're going to get better performance.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Well, and that's pretty much time. I told you that that was going to fly. We've covered so much. Claudia and I are going to stick around for the next sort of 10 minutes or so. If you've got any questions, we'll probably be able to put things on the chat and answer anything that you want to cover specifically. We'll use this time for you. But thank you for joining that. Hopefully there's some useful stuff. There's a QR code there again. As I said at the beginning, stay connected to our LinkedIn channels because you'll hear about all of the stuff that's coming up in the next few months. But if you want a meeting with us and want to talk some of this through, the QR code's there, scan it, and it will send you through to us. So thank you. That was really great. And thanks, Claudia. That was really good fun.
Yeah, and also if anyone wants to join us in London next week, we've got an in-person session with companies like M&S, River Island, Fidelity joining us on Thursday at 4:30 in London. Reach out to us if you're keen to join. Oh, there we go. There's a link for the event. So sign up if you are interested in joining us in person next week. We'll actually be using our conversation mats as well, our team flow ones, which is all around team effectiveness. So be awesome to have you down there and see you all in person as well. And yes, we can send through the recording, absolutely. So don't you worry, you can share this with any team members that you think would find it really valuable. But thank you so much. It's been awesome to have you all joining.
Thanks, everyone.